on you, it can bring things, it can produce, it can cause you to act in regrettable ways and say regrettable things. Those weren't my exact words, but that was the gist of it. But I said how my sister had done the heavy lifting. And I think her watching this effect on my dad, she said in her grief and her pain, this isn't fair. And I agreed with her and said, you know who else thinks this is not fair? God thinks this is not fair. And that God has done something about this.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing. He talked about how the human, within that same sequence, he talked about how the human heart wasn't created for death, and it's contrary to our hearts, and it doesn't feel nice, right? And then, like what he just said, he used all that and led into, you know, who else doesn't think it's fair? God the Father. Listen, there's a woman sitting next to me the whole funeral. We were in the back, so I gotta believe she was some type of friend of the family, maybe not, you know, part of the family, but she was there for the visitation, the whole mass. She didn't, not one tear shed. His brother got up before him, went through his father's whole, what do they call it, the eulogy, I guess? He went through his father's whole life, and he said, listen, it was moving to me to hear about. Not one tear out of this woman, right? Thomas gets up. He's talking about some things with his dad and his son. Nothing, not a peep out of this woman. He starts talking about his sister and what she went through and how she said it wasn't fair. And he went into how the effect death has on the human heart. And that woman next to me broke down. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean just started like this. She started weeping uncontrollably out loud and started sticking her head in her lap like that, trying to like comfort herself, and then had to get up and be removed. And so I don't know for sure because I didn't go accost her so we could make a mark on a totem pole and say, we got a salvation here. But I felt in my heart that woman got saved on the spot. That once he started talking about the effect of death, and God, what God the Father also thinks it isn't fair. And then he talked about what he did in Jesus because of what he thought it wasn't fair. Man, that you could just tell that hit that woman hard. You could tell that death had bruised that woman, that woman had suffered at the hands of death in this earth. And in that moment, it was like God was there telling her, right? I know, me too. Yeah. It isn't fair. And this is what I've done, right? And it was like in that moment, she was like identifying that the Father loved her. Right? And the Father saw the pain and knew, and he wasn't indifferent to it. Because so many times we can feel like God's indifferent to the pain, right? We can look in the world and we can think, where the hell are you, man? Right? And it was like in that moment, man, she like connected with the heart of God, and I just thought it was beautiful that Thomas just really put the heart of God on display. And it was, listen, I almost felt like I got saved all over again, if you can understand what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the thing about the Spirit. Because it's not an academic exercise, so many times we think when we hear something, then we know it, and then it's no longer moving, right? We know it, but no. The Spirit, it's like you can know the truth, but in the presence of the Spirit, that thing will still move you, man. And I was struggling not to, break down in tears as he was talking about it all.
I was when the priest got saved. I heard the song.
Yeah.
When you started talking about you don't have to go to seminary, you don't have to go to church 101. That priest was doing this the whole time, acknowledging everything he said. I would have to tell you that, literally.
Yeah, I thought I saw him look over at him when he said, you know who else thinks it isn't fair? God the Father. Yeah. And when he started talking about I thought I saw him look over, and the verse that came to my mind was when it said that, and this isn't to say the guy's a Pharisee. I don't know the guy's personal life. I thought he did a fine job, right? It's not to disparage this guy at all. It's just the example. It was almost like when the Pharisees marveled at Jesus talking about God in the scriptures because he was quote unquote unlearned, right? And it was almost like, here's a Jesuit priest, that means the guy's learned. You know what I'm saying? He's probably been exposed to documents and readings that none of us even know exist, right? From like centuries ago. And it was like almost like this guy's like, who is this unlearned person out there? Who is this guy? What's what this guy is saying? And it was like, man.
I didn't tell Lisa that